They trademark their spells, and if some of their magic like just drifts on the wind into like a preserver's crop, then they get to sue that preserver, right?
Yeah,
and that's the main conflict of this world.
Exactly, yeah. It's the Lore Boys Sun-Kissed for this week's episode, bringing you the internet's best fake history. I'm your host, Ethan Palmer, and today Peter O'Donoghue will be dragging himself through the sand-blasted wastes of this world with me. Say hi, Peter.
Hey, Ethan. It's Peter O'Donoghue here. My skin hurts already.
Yeah. You're pasty normally, and this atmosphere doesn't seem to be doing favors for you. Now, the more astute of our listeners, the people who've been following the show for a long, long time, since day one, might notice that something in this intro is missing. Something in this intro is a little off, and that is, of course, James Miller, beloved co-host, dear friend, dog father, did unfortunately get involved in a tragic autoerotic asphyxiation accident, and he won't be able to join us for this week's episode, unfortunately.
Yeah, COVID restrictions recently limit the amount of people you can have in your household, so it's vastly more dangerous to choke yourself while masturbating these days, which, frankly, I think is the worst thing about the pandemic, if you ask me.
I mean, I disagree with the government's guidelines on erotic asphyxiation spotters because I want a minimum of 6 foot distance between me and my spotter anyway. I want it to feel like I'm alone and I'm in danger, right? So if they're within 6 feet, which is the maximum distance that the virus can travel, then I'm not having a good time anyway. So
it's ridiculous.
So most of you would have guessed from the title and maybe even the title card, if you're on the website, loreboys.com, that we're going to be talking about Dark Sun lore today. This was a request from our dear old friend, Saucy Chimera. Hi, Saucy. Saucy, spicy, goes a person of many titles, I think is fair to say.
Yeah, but always at least like pretty good food. Like I'd be okay with like some spicy chimera, a saucy chimera. I don't know if you'd put that in like a glass dish, toss it in the oven, and then like let that kind of boil up a bit. Yeah. Nightmare to wash afterwards, obviously, with the crust on the side, but
Yeah, well, that's it. I'd just do it in my cast iron, probably. But
yeah.
This was a viewer request. If you'd like to request an episode, hit us up on Discord by heading to loreboys.com/about. You can find the Discord invite link there. Someday we'll have enough people boosting our Discord channel to get like a fancy discord.com/loreboys, but that day is not this day.
That's not really up to us. That's up to the fans. I think you guys should probably just work a little harder.
Yeah, you layabouts. All jokes aside, we spend a lot of time there. It's these days the best way to get in touch with us for sure. But we also do check our email at contact@loreboys.com or loreboyspodcast@gmail.com. They both go to the same inbox. So you can hit us up there as well if you want to request an episode. Speaking of, I guess, the emails, we did a mailbag, a month ago now? Probably about that.
Yeah, something like that.
Month and a half, who knows? That was a ton of fun. A lot of people showed up on twitch.tv/theloreboys, and it was good fun. And we have the audio file. We haven't taken the time to scrub through it because it's like 3.5 hours long, I think. And it was us very drunk. So it's going to take some more careful editing than most. So that'll be out eventually in the coming weeks, probably. But we're planning on doing another one eventually just because it was such a blast. Once it was over, we hopped on Discord again, and we all just played like a bunch of Jackbox games and everything. So it was a ton of fun. So do keep in mind that you can keep sending stuff to our email, and we will eventually read it on air. When it hits the air is kind of a subject of some debate amongst the Lore Boys scholars, the Lore Boys scribes, but it will.
Yeah, we're kind of like we're kind of political in that way, and we make a bunch of promises that that maybe we'll get to. That's not the reason you put us here.
Yeah. Exactly.
But also, if you're fortunate, just one last note regarding the mailbag, there is merch available at tpublic.com/theloreboys that comes from two two wonderful men on our Discord, Bison and Darnell. So you can buy as well, or maybe even one day create your own Titty Make Me Immortal t-shirt.
the t-shirt that I'm pretty sure might get us sued by Sony one day, but the PS2 branded Titty Make Me Immortal t-shirt. Get it before it's copyright stricken and our whole store goes down, folks.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're talking about Dark Sun. Pete, why don't you lay the groundwork for what Dark Sun is? Okay, wait.
Yeah.
And before we do that, could you keep it to a minimum of 4 to 5 sentences for me?
Yeah,
just 4 to 5 sentences minimum. Nice little short paragraph on Dark Sun lore.
Dark Sun is a fantasy anime based on a desert planet that has constant eclipses and is full of alien wildlife.
Okay, I mean you're kind of close. Not an anime.
Okay.
What am I? So I just finished our Elspeth block of Magic the Gathering episodes.
Yes.
And I told you before the show that I was looking into doing some more Warhammer 40k episodes, but I decided to not go for it this week.
Yeah.
So what's the third thing that I talk about?
D&D.
D&D, yeah. So Dark Sun is a Dungeons and Dragons setting.
Yeah. The third thing you're talking about is choking yourself while masturbating. I got
it. So we're autoerotic asphyxiation lore today. The do's
it
and
all
don'ts.
started when Alec Baldwin got very drunk.
So we've talked about Dungeons and Dragons before. Today we're talking about a specific setting that was first published in 2nd edition Dungeons and Dragons and was published again in 4th edition Dungeons and Dragons. And that's the world of Athos. Which ties to the setting is called Dark Sun. The planet that it takes place on, or the plane that it takes place on, is called Athos. Okay. You don't need to have listened to our other Dungeons and Dragons episodes to enjoy this one. But I guess an honest question I'm throwing to you, Pete, because you didn't know what it was, but you do know a bit about Dungeons and Dragons. So do you want to remind me what you remember about Dungeons and Dragons, broad strokes?
Yeah, so the D&D world takes place, it's not like on multiple planes. They're not referred to as planes, I don't think, like they are in Magic, but there are multiple parallel dimensions that are separated by some kind of magical fluid that you can sail through with a Spelljammer. I know that's like a wizard-powered travel ship. Mm-hmm. And I know there's a bunch of different worlds. Like there was like a Magic the Gathering fusion called Ravnica, I want to say. I can't remember what the main area is called, but it is ranging from standard sword and board, sword and sorcery sort of fantasy settings with dragons and different monsters like ogres and trolls and like really classic kind of storybook shit, all the way up to the Illithid, which are essentially extra-dimensional space aliens, and then like more steampunk shit and that sort of thing. It's an all-encompassing fantasy universe, from what I understand, is separated into multiple spheres of existence that you can get to if your wizard is strong enough, basically.
Yeah, exactly. For the Spelljammer setting specifically was the one that kind of introduced these different realms. There are planes, but not in the Magic the Gathering sense. Like there's in the specific world of the Forgotten Realms, which is the sword and board fantasy setting that you kind of referred to.
That's where you have like Baldur's Gate, right?
Baldur's Gate, Waterdeep, the hero Dritz Duerden from the R.E. Salvatore books. That all takes place in Forgotten Realms.
The Underdark as well, right?
The Underdark is like a section. And like all those things that we just listed are part of the material plane. And then, around the material plane, there's like the Shadowfell and the Feywild, which are like linked to the material plane, but not a part of it. If all this stuff sounds cool to you, we have talked about it on past episodes. So if you want to go back to season 1, we'll send you your pickaxe and shovel so you can dig that shit up. It was the second last episode of season 1, I think. So one of the I think I may have had this nicer mic by the time we did that one, but I'm not positive about that. Because I got it that's the summer after we started, and we started in June.
We're gonna be 4 in like a month and a half.
Holy Moses, huh?
Yeah.
So for the people who really don't know what we're talking about, Dungeons and Dragons is a tabletop role-playing game, and what that is essentially is it's collaborative storytelling. So you and a couple friends get together and you try and tell a story, and then you roll dice to have different outcomes in that story. And if the dice go your way, then, a good thing happens. If they don't go your way, a bad thing happens. But there's basically published settings where you can say, oh, I want to be in, the Magic Sword and Board setting, and that's where I'm going to do my adventure kind of thing. Or you could say, I want to be in the Dark Sun setting, which is, we'll get into what it is exactly, but a little grittier than traditional Dungeons and Dragons, let's say.
Good. Yeah. A little more Aragorn, a little less Legolas.
Exactly.
Nice.
No, there's no skateboarding on a shield down a flight of stairs while shooting a bow and arrow in the Dark Sun setting. That's strictly the traditional Faerun Dungeons and Dragons setting.
The Tolkien estate forced Peter Jackson to keep that scene in.
Yeah. They issued a cease and desist when he mentioned that he wasn't going to do it.
Yeah, we're going to cut that. He was like, no. Surfing down the stairs is really fucking important in the Silmarillion, so we're going to have to leave
yeah,
that.
Exactly. Yeah. Melkor, the first dissonant sound in the universe was essentially the sound of a shield scraping down a flight of stairs, right? So
absolutely, yeah. It's really hard to jam with.
I guess if nobody knows what the fuck we're talking about here, they go listen to our Tolkien episodes, which we've done a few on.
Yeah, we have like 3, I think.
So I'm going to start us off with a quote. There's been a lot of books published in the Dark Sun setting. I didn't take any of them down for sources because I haven't read any of them, so I'm getting this stuff from the internet. Says that we get a lot of our stuff, but I know that this was once a green world, a world of seas and forests. I know that this cruel and tormented world in which we live was shaped by our own hands. Sorcery, dark and evil, made our Athos what it is today. That's a quote from Garrick's Sandstrider, extracted from Garrick's journal.
So is this like a global warming planet, but instead of coal, it's magic that blocked out the sun by like destroying the atmosphere?
Yeah, you're not far off at all.
Okay, cool.
I guess,
cool.
I mean, we've already established in the Spelljammer episode that you can jam a magician into a furnace and it'll produce magic energy.
Yeah.
So maybe they just did that with too many magician-powered furnaces on this world. We'll get into exactly why. We're going to start with what the world is and how it is, and then eventually we'll get into the why it is. So
okay, I see.
You're not far off. It's a post-apocalyptic world. Specifically, it's a post-apocalyptic desert world. So one need only see the ruins of the ancients that litter its shores to realize that Athos was not always the arid waste it is today. Athos is a world without seasons.
Okay.
It was once a blue planet, as referenced in that quote, teeming with life. Athos has since been stripped of its fertility by the use of corrupting magic known as Defiling Magic and the decay of its sun. It is a sunburnt land forsaken by the gods, water, and hope. Now, the decay of its sun, we'll also get into what's causing the sun to decay and how that works. But when I was researching this, I kept trying to figure out, and you kind of referenced it when you were giving your blind guess at what Dark Sun was, where you said it's a world that's constant eclipses or whatever. So I spent a long time trying to figure out if the Dark Sun world had a dark sun. but it doesn't. It has a red sun. I don't know why. I don't know where. I mean, dark sun because evil is my best guess. But it was surprisingly difficult to find any kind of description of the sun in the Dark Sun world until I kind of got to
far away where the light just doesn't read it, and like red light. So this is
red light fast.
A big dumb nerd thing that I just happen to know. The wavelength of red light does not travel as far as the wavelength of blue light. No. So that's why deep sea animals tend to be dark brown or bright red, is because the red light is absorbed before it could reach them, making them completely invisible in the darkness.
Yeah.
So maybe they based it on that, but that's...
No. I mean,
I don't know.
No, we'll get it. Like I said, we'll get into why. That's an honorable guess, but Magic Fantasy World did not use the properties of the shorter wavelength of red light to describe why their sun appears red. Instead,
I would.
Instead, spoilers. It's magic.
Fuck. Should have known better.
So the natural resources of Athos have been depleted, and a lack of metal has resulted in the use of wood, obsidian, and bone for weapons, tools, and common equipment. So a lot of like bone armor and bone swords, things like that, because
volcanic rock and shit.
Yeah, metal is exceedingly rare. Obsidian is more common. I didn't I don't think I actually mentioned in this episode when I was researching, there was somebody that cast a spell and basically opened a portal to somewhere, and just like a sea of molten obsidian like poured out of it. So there's a section of the world that's just like covered in this like lake of hardened obsidian.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely very cool. In this harsh and unforgiving land, even the most mundane creatures have developed psionic abilities in the constant struggle of survival of the fittest. So, Peter, you referenced the Mind Flayers. Those of you who remember the Mind Flayer episode that we did, Kentucky Flayed Chicken, you'll remember that psionics is the type of quote unquote magic that the Mind Flayers use, because it's not really magic. It's more like a magic superpower, psychic superpower, than it is magic in the traditional sense in the D&D settings, where just game talk, just talking game shop, there's a lot of like has advantage on saving throws against magic effects, which that wouldn't apply for psionic abilities, because psionic abilities are just like innate natural abilities that they have where they can manipulate psychic forces, essentially.
Okay, so like psionics are an evolved power opposed to magic, which is learned by wizards and sorcerers and whatnot, right?
Exactly. Well, yeah, so magic itself in the D&D settings, and you can listen to our Karthus' Folly episode to learn about this, but there's what's called the weave of magic, which is like an invisible, net that kind of connects all things in the universe. And what wizards basically do is wizards will study how the weave works and figure out how to like drop a stitch or place a stitch in a different way to produce a certain effect. Whereas psionics don't have anything to do with the weave. There was a time, which I think we've talked about this one, the Spell Plague. If we talked about it, we talked about it very briefly. I haven't done an episode on it. Where
those two words sound familiar in conjunction.
Yeah,
that helps.
Spell Plague might also be a Dragon Age thing. I'm not sure, but the Spell Plague.
The blight.
Yeah. Anyway, the Spell Plague was essentially a period of time where the god of magic put up her boots for a while. Mystra kind of hung up her hat, and nobody could cast spells anymore, and the gods were kind of cast down to the earth and everything. Anyway, all tangential, just to say a lot of creatures on Athis have developed psionic abilities, and we'll get into the specific why of that.
Right, and everybody's spoons are now unusable because they bend before they hit the bowl.
Yeah, exactly.
Psionic animal.
Also because it's very hot. So in a world such as Athis, a death by natural aging is considered to be a great achievement and an event worthy of celebration. So if somebody dies of old age, they throw a rager for them, because it doesn't happen very often.
Do they flip your birthday and funeral, basically, as far as how much fun people have?
Yeah, exactly. So Athis is a hot, arid planet covered with endless seas of dunes, lifeless salt flats, stony wastes, rocky badlands, thorny scrublands, and worse. From the first moments of dawn, the crimson sun beats down from an olive-tinged sky. Temperatures routinely exceed 38 degrees Celsius, which is about 100 degrees Fahrenheit, by mid-morning, and can reach 130 degrees Fahrenheit or 55 degrees Celsius by late afternoon. So, unlivable, some would say.
Yep.
Also, Dutch Peter, I'm going to assume you're listening. This counts as your holdover Dune episode, because this is basically the D&D Dune setting.
Okay. Yeah, it does sound kind of like Arrakis now that you mentioned it.
Yeah, exactly. Just this desert planet with super hot temperatures and very rare water. And the wind on Athis is like the blast of a furnace, offering no relief from the oppressive heat. Dust and sand borne on the breeze coat everything with yellow-orange silt. So, Peter.
Yes.
If you were, say, to find yourself lost on the sandy dunes of Athis, what would your first thought be? You're in the middle of nowhere, nothing in sight, you haven't seen civilization in days. What are you going to do? You're out of water, you're out of food. What do you do?
Well, just a D&D a bit here. Am I covered up? What am I carrying? What's my equipment like?
No equipment. No equipment. You are
not even the fucking Bedouin scarf with the little black band holding it onto my forehead.
You are lobster red. Just a D&D a bit. You got plopped into this world from another dimension. You've never seen it before. Completely unprepared. What do you do?
I want to try and find some shade so I can think. That's it.
I was thinking that you might try and pray. Instead, you were pretty resourceful, trying to find shade. Unfortunately, there was no shade.
Oh yeah, never mind.
So perhaps
this is a lot like Utah and not like Arrakis, honestly.
Yeah. So with your kind of last actions, you search for shade for a while. You're not able to find it. You decide to turn to that old crutch, the cross. But that is a dumb move, Peter. That was foolish of you, because the gods of Athos are long gone, either dead or simply forgotten.
Damn, I wish they would be more clear with their intentions so that I could, pray properly and shit.
Yeah, so there were gods of Athos at one point, but when you're playing in this setting, typically your DM, like the standard setting, I guess vanilla Dark Sun setting would be there are no gods. There's reference to these beings called the Primordials, which overcame the gods at some point in the past, but I couldn't really find much reference to what the Primordials actually were. If I had to guess, probably something to do with elements, right? Like just based on the name.
Yeah, traditionally they're like forces of nature. They're variations on like the Greek Titans, basically. So they're all based on a certain element. So I guess the wind and ghosts primordials overtook the gods of shade and water and reasonable temperature.
Exactly.
Comfortabilia, the goddess of 21 degrees in the afternoon.
Yeah. Wine spritzeris. She's my favorite goddess. Delivers me tasty, refreshing drinks on the beach. The goddess of hula skirts and lays.
Yes.
Or God, maybe Kamehameha. I don't know. So in terms of game talk, to touch back on it again, it basically means there's no clerics and no paladins, which are two classes in D&D, which you traditionally can't play in the Dark Sun setting.
No gods, they have no power.
Yeah, they derive their power directly from their deity, and without deities, you can't do that. That said, if I ever ran a Dark Sun setting and you wanted to play a fucking cleric, I'd figure out a way to let you play a fucking cleric. You know what I mean? Like, oh yeah, your god is just the heat itself, the heat, or the Dark Sun itself, like whatever.
Or even like a cleric abandoned by God could be an interesting character.
Yeah, so that's often a thing in D&D. So if you're playing a paladin in Dungeons and Dragons, and you're a paladin sworn to Bahamut, who is the lawful good platinum dragon deity in Dungeons and Dragons, like ultimate good. And let's say you go out of your way to kill an innocent person. How the mechanics should work is your god should abandon you when you do that. Like if you do an inherently evil action as a good paladin or a good cleric, your gods are supposed to abandon you in that moment, and basically say like, well, maybe you're not the paladin for me. And then it's always like you can kind of god shop a bit and be like, oh, well, who do I want to swear myself to then? What god will let me get away with murder?
I wrote my resume in the blood of innocent people. I want to see whose HR department's going to get back to me at this point.
Yeah. Hey, it worked for me. So
yeah, me too.
So Athos, a world without deities. You can find old shrines and crumbling temples lying amid the ancient ruins, testimony to a time when the gods spoke to the people of Athos, but they are no more.
All the phone cords on the altars are all like disconnected. So it's just receivers hanging impotently on stone altars at this point. It's
just a telephone booth, but some absolute maniac has like ripped the receiver off the wire. Essentially, you just have this end of a wire. Yeah. Some guy who was just really mad at the phone company decided to take it out on a Bell telephone booth, and he's just. I guess I should also say that. This world was definitely also inspired by Mad Max. Maybe more by Mad Max now that I think about it. It didn't.
Get your edge on, Bray. That's it.
It didn't occur to me so much when I was first starting researching it because I've read Dune, but I haven't seen any of the Mad Max films.
Okay.
So it didn't occur to me, but now that I'm thinking about it, because they're all very like black leather and like those gothic tattoos are like eyeliner styles and all this, and very.
Okay. Yeah.
Very. I guess Mad Max. So it was probably one of those guys, who ripped the telephone off the telephone booth. They don't seem so stable. So in the absence
people
of...
who use phone booths are never stable.
Yeah. Exactly. In this day and age, anyway.
Yeah.
The year 15,000 Dark Sun or whatever it is. So, in the absence of divine influence, other powers have come to prominence in the world. We mentioned psionics. They're well-known, widely practiced on Athos. Even unintelligent desert monsters can have deadly psionic abilities, like I mentioned before. There's shamans and druids. They call upon the primal powers of the world. So presumably they're like clerics, but their gods are primordials, I guess. I don't know.
It's like a nature cleric instead of a divine cleric, basically.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
So shamans and druids call upon primal powers, which are often sculpted by the influence of elemental power. So power of fire, power of water, power of air, etc. Power of stone.
Yeah, colors of the wind kind of guys.
Exactly. The brutal climate and the oppressive rule of the Sorcerer Kings have created a corrupt, bloodthirsty, and desperate culture that leaves little room for chivalric virtues common to fantasy settings, like your Sword and Board Sword Coast. Like I said, this is why probably a bigger reason why paladins should be excluded from your Dark Sun game, because like moral codes don't have such an easy fit in a morally gray setting, right?
Yeah,
it's just it's probably less fun for the player if they're like, I drew myself into a box to always be a good character, when the DM is specifically trying to create morally gray situations for you to work your way out of, you know, where like, both answers might be evil, or you know. And then it's like, well, what does your lawful good paladin do? Like, oh, I storm out. And that's never a fun environment to be kind of playing these games in, where one person's dichotomy is kind of opposed to the rest of the parties, right?
Yeah, well, everybody always takes these. It's like, I storm out. It's like, okay, well, the yurt flap locked behind you, so you can't get out of the tent. You must eat the baby.
Yeah. It's eat the baby or sign up for this timeshare, man. It's your call.
Oh no.
So slavery is commonplace in Athos. Gladiatorial duels provide entertainment for the elite, and death permeates the culture, pretty much all of the nations of the world. Death is pretty commonplace. Like I said, old age is like an accomplishment. It's like achievement unlocked. You got to 60, you know?
Yeah.
Achievement unlocked, 5 years left to retirement.
What do you like? Retire on your Dune farm? Like,
yeah, you're. I'm gonna raise sandworms in my free time.
Okay. Well, the salt crystals have grown very high this year.
So I mentioned Sorcerer Kings. These are dark wizards known as Defilers, of immense power specifically. These are very powerful Defilers. Rule city-states throughout the land. So there's no like countries. It's more feudal city-states kind of settings.
It sounds kind of like Mad Max by way of like Assyria. Like with like ancient kind of like ancient like desert civilization god kings more than anything, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean, it is very similar to that. They are god. They're more traditional god kings in the sense, or I guess maybe less traditional god kings in the sense that they actually do have power to immense magic that
yes,
most people don't have power to, and we'll get into. We're going to talk about why other people don't have.
I was not asserting the existence of actual sorcerers in Mesopotamia.
Man, you think Shanghai of Assyria actually had godlike powers? That's fine, Peter. Think what you want about.
I'm just saying that guy with the wild ass hair really convinced me that I think the Anunnaki have like really done some good work.
Yeah. So these mighty spellcasters, Defilers, have held their thrones for centuries. No one alive remembers a time before the Sorcerer Kings. Some claim to be gods. Some claim to serve gods. Some are brutal oppressors, where others are more subtle in their tyranny, but tyrannical nonetheless. So there's some that are you know, like outright, hey, disobey us, I'm going to put your head on a pike, mount it on my wall, you know? Don't fuck with me. And there's others who are like, hey, don't worry about it, okay? I understand. You lost your land to that mega corporation. They tore down your house and put up a Walmart. Well, you know what? I'm going to fix this for you, okay? I have a timeshare that I want to get you in on here, okay? No, not your thing. Okay. Well, I got this baby. Are you hungry? So yeah, the Sorcerer Kings, they govern through priesthoods sometimes if they claim to be gods, or sometimes just bureaucracies of greedy, ambitious Templars. I know which one I would pick. Definitely the priesthoods. Don't give me the bureaucracies, because at least priesthoods will get stuff done. You know what I mean?
I mean, the more people, like, the more departments that, like, kind of make things more granular, the less shit gets done.
Yeah. Usually their Templars and their priests are able to call upon the king's powers. Like, so they become more powerful. Their magic becomes stronger through kind of funneling some of their king's power through them, essentially.
Okay, he pays them in magic, and they have, like, a higher magic salary to become, like, less powerful but still powerful sorcerers of some kind.
Yeah, I mean, he pays them in what you pay any cop or soldier. You pay them in, a bloated sense of importance and of an unholstered gun, essentially, right?
Imagined power is every 2 weeks you make 41,000 imagined powers a year, man.
Yeah. So only in the city-state of Tyr does a glimmer of freedom beckon, and powerful forces already conspire to extinguish it. The reason I mentioned Tyr is because it's where most of the books take place. It's what I have dubbed protagonist land, Okay. It's where you go on the journey to rescue the princess. It all starts in Tyr. All starts in and probably comes back to Tyr, having not read any of the books.
Okay.
Rain falls only once per decade, give or take, in some areas. So as such, water is more precious than gold. This is what gave me the Dune vibes more than anything.
Gold's also a metal, which is probably very rare on this planet.
Yeah, exactly. So gold would be even more precious on Athos than it is on Yarth. But water
gold is more precious than gold as we know it. It's like it's not better; it's the same technically, but there's less of it.
Yeah, water better than gold is essentially the
yes.
Due to the scarcity of natural resources, few wizards have access to books made of proper pages and hard covers. Instead, they record their spells with string patterns and complex knots. So fiber is more common than wood to make paper. They'll get ropes, and like I said, magic kind of works like a weave of magic. So they just kind of knot it in certain ways, and that's how they remember their spells.
This is based off an existing culture, which I'm going to Jamie pull up the clip for myself because I have heard about this before. It predates writing in some way, which was like a actual like not through reed fiber string way of record keeping.
I believe it's called when used in the magic sense, I believe it's called naughtymancy. It's Naughty. Yeah, Mancy. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's how you spell naughty, Peter. So I mean, that would make the most sense, right?
It's not the one with the K.
I mean, I thought it was pretty cool that they because wizards in D&D settings, like you said before, learn their magic. So in traditional D&D settings, there's wizards and sorcerers. Sorcerers are kind of born to it. It's my grandpappy fucked a dragon, and now I have magic powers. Whereas wizards are like, hey, I went to school for 4 years and then decided to do my graduate in wizardry, and I memorized how to cast spells, essentially.
Okay. So I did find it. Jamie managed to pull up the clip in spirit, R.I.P. It is the Inca of South America. So the Incan Quipu is a record-keeping system that uses string.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yes.
Real-life lore for you. Inca lore. That's what this one is. And Inca lore sounds like one of the made-up animals of Athos.
It really does, yeah.
It sounds like a creature out of Star Wars, I swear to God. So the desert planet obviously has its own deadly ecology, its own flora and fauna. Many creatures that are familiar sights on milder worlds have long since died out or never existed at all. There's no cattle, no swine, no horses on Athos. Instead,
you can't just be a vegetarian or something like that. That's ridiculous.
So I posted all these spoilered clips for you.
Thank you.
You can't be a vegetarian unless you're willing to eat knotted rope for every meal, I guess. Because they got that in spades apparently. So people tend to flocks of Erdlus, ride on Canks or Crodless, and draw wagons with Inixes and Mecalots. So these are just a couple examples of kinds of creatures that you can find here, and I thought they some of them sounded pretty cool. So Erdlus are large, flightless, featherless birds covered with flaky scales that range in color from pale gray to deep red. An Erdlu can weigh...
mean turkey with a horn?
Yeah, pretty much. Can weigh up to 200 pounds, which is not that much, but grow to a height of 7 feet. So basically an ostrich. Its massive round body has a pair of useless wings that fold in at its sides. A snake-like neck rises to a small round head with huge wedge-shaped beak. A pair of powerful lanky legs extend down from the body and end in four-toed, razor-clawed feet. So those are that's kind of a meat bird, like you said, a large turkey.
Yeah. I mean, it also looks exactly like a lot more like modern reconstructions of an oviraptor, which is like a real Mongolian dinosaur. Which has some very iconic fossils associated with it. I don't keep meaning to nerd out about real world shit, but you're setting me up with all this other cool shit I was already interested in.
my secret, Pete, is that the real world lore is my favorite lore anyway. So the next two are types of steeds. So canks are docile insects that form hives. The Cank Soldier can be trained for riding in war. Easily domesticated, they are valued for the nectar they produce, which can be fermented to make broy, a cheap and nasty alcohol. It's described as. So,
good. It's a moonshine beetle.
Yeah, the lore boys do love us some moonshine, so I think we'd be moonshine beetle herders in the future. In whatever world this is. The other type of mount is a larger version of the Erdlu, known as a Crodlu, a large flightless drake with weak clawed forearms. So it's slightly less feathered than the Erdlu. Some are bred and trained to bear humanoids, yet even those are aggressive and unpredictable. They're a larger version of an Erdlu. So yeah, big angry scale bird monster.
Yeah, it just looks like a dinosaur. It's kind of the spoiler you sent me is pretty basic.
Yeah, exactly.
The dinosaur with a beak.
Exactly. The Onyx is a large lizard that falls between Canks and Mecalots for sheer size. We'll get to what a Mecalot is. A Cank is the moonshine beetle.
Okay, right.
It weighs about 2 tons, grows to lengths of 16 feet. The Onyx's back is protected by a thick shell, while flexible scales cover its underside. These are sometimes used as like oxen or things to pull wagons or plow fields. If they had fields to plow, then this is what they would plow them with, essentially.
Yeah, I there's not a whole lot of good like gardening rows in the infinite sand wastes.
Yeah, exactly.
But, okay, so it's a beast of burden, but it's a lizard in this case.
They're rarely used as beasts of burdens, but yeah, sometimes used to pull wagons, stuff like that. Like 16 feet long, so it's kind of like big ass wagons to do it. But again, kind of Mad Max vibes from the setting. So maybe they got some like, semi trucks that they got running behind these things, essentially.
They have 10-year-old water in, basically.
Yeah.
You've got the last rainfall vintage.
Yeah. A typical Mecalot stands between 28 and 30 feet long and weighs around 12,000 pounds.
This is very cute, by the way.
Extremely cute. It's got like a nice soft face. Kind of reminds me of Appa from Avatar: The Last Airbender, which I don't know if you know, but just like a big...
Yeah, it looks like that, but with a shell.
Exactly, yeah. It's scaly and shelly. It's dwarfing palm trees in this picture. It definitely looks bigger than 30 feet long and more than 12,000 feet long, or 12,000 pounds in that picture, but I'm not sure if it's to scale. Mecalots are lizards with huge mound-shaped bodies covered with a thick shell everywhere except for on their sides and bellies. But yeah, very docile looking. These ones are absolutely just workhorses, and these ones are used to pull like giant wagons and things like that across the desert. So presumably if you're traveling across, desert wastes in this horrific world, you probably need a buttload of supplies to kind of get anywhere, because it's probably slow going if this lazy bastard is pulling you. So yeah, God bless him, okay? Let him take his time, because he looks so cute doing it, but I can't imagine he's getting you anywhere fast.
Yeah, no.
Wild creatures, as opposed to reared creatures, such as lions, bears, and wolves, are non-existent here, pretty much. In their place are terrors such as the Idfiend, which is the only one I actually give you a picture of, the Bazrag, and the Tembo. Perhaps
the Idfiend just looks like a pissed off drooling iguana.
Yeah, it's like a giant chameleon or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Perhaps the harsh environment of Athas breeds creatures tough and vicious enough to survive it, or maybe the touch of ancient sorcery poisoned the wellspring of life and inflicted monster after monster on the dying world. Either way, the deserts are perilous, and only a fool or a lunatic travels them alone. So the Idfiend is the only monster that I wanted to talk about, because I didn't want to spend too much time just talking about different kind of burbs and stuff. But it's like a it's kind of like a Gila monster or just like a large lizard, I guess, as Peter kind of said, a giant iguana. It has large, thick, stocky body supported by 4 muscular legs. All of the Idfiend's legs end in 4 clawed digits, 3 pointing forward and 1 backward, which I thought was just a fun detail. It usually ranges about 8 to 12 feet long and wields psionic abilities, which draw images of its victims' fears from their minds. So you start when these bad boys are in the area, you start getting bad dreams, essentially.
I can't believe this thing knew that I had a terrifying fear of giant lizards. Like,
yeah, I have a fear of backwards hands, and it's got one of them. So now that we have an idea of the type of denizens you might encounter while out in the waste, and we know that God won't be any help, how the heck can you defend yourself out there, huh? How are you supposed to stay alive?
Maybe with some of that sorcery.
You nailed it.
I don't know. Some kind. Okay.
If religion won't help, maybe magic will. That's why I was a magician in 7th grade. It's because
legally distinct religion. Magic.
I remember when I first found David Copperfield. There's 2 types of magic in Dark Sun: preserving magic and defiling magic, which we mentioned the Defilers. They use defiling magic.
It's the hippie v capitalist, basically, but I can tell by the psychic lizards who won that fight.
Yeah, again, it's all pretty morally gray, so it's we'll get into it, but it's really hard to use magic in a positive way.
Okay.
On Athos, magic and the land beneath your feet are inexorably intertwined. Arcane magic draws its power from the life force of plants or living creatures, with the potential to cause tremendous harm to the environment. As a result, wizards and other arcane casters are despised and must practice in secret. Pretty much nobody trusts wizards because they draw from life force. They draw from plants. Somebody's like, finally got my petunias to grow in this horrible wasteland. And a fucking wizard comes by and he sucks the life out of your petunias to create himself some good berries and goes on with his day. So psionics, which you kind of mentioned before, are like superpowers instead of magic, are much more prevalent.
But they occur naturally, right? Like psionics don't draw from the earth.
Exactly. This is like the big difference is they don't burn in their wake. They don't burn fuel. You can just kind of use them.
Okay.
They're extremely common, psionics. Pretty much every living thing has at least a modicum of psionic ability.
Okay.
How much that is varies pretty wildly. A wizard, on the other hand, is able to capture and master magical energies. On Athos, no one, not even a wizard, however, can affect one without affecting the other. So you can capture magic, but you can't not leave the ground and leave the earth and leave the life therein untouched by that.
So it's like alchemy, kind of? There's like a balance to the spell casting on this planet?
Sure, it's like a Full Metal Alchemist, like always and even exchange, essentially.
Okay.
I don't know if you've seen Full Metal Alchemist, but it's you can't draw magic from nothing. Whenever they use their magic, they draw their power from something, essentially. I've
seen like clips of episodes. I've never actually seen like a full actual show.
There you go. I watched Brotherhood. It was good. So all wizards, when they finish their post-grad in wizardry, they got to decide at the start of their careers whether they are trying to work with nature or without regard for it. In Dark Sun, if they decide to work with nature, it means the wizard is a preserver. If they decide to work without regard for nature, it means the wizard is a defiler.
Do these 2 classes of wizard compete, or do you just like leave school with a major and a minor in one of the 2 and then end up just in 2 different career paths?
No, so defilers are like inherently evil because they have no regard for the magic that they wield. Really, a preserver is somebody who's taking from the land, but the whole ideology behind being a preserver is they recognize that using magic is evil, is inherently evil. They use it as sparingly as possible, and they try and do it in ways that, like, hey, if I cast a spell and kill these 3 blind mice I have in this shoebox with me, then maybe I can stop this big bad wizard who's going to, drive a species to extinction. So
okay.
They understand preservers that it's not good to use magic, and it's destroying the world, and it's sucking up all the resources, all the water, all the plants, all the everything. So they try and do it as sparingly as possible because they know how evil it is.
Okay.
So preservers gather energy from the land. They take only what they need and work to keep the world healthy and alive as with the magic that they do have to use.
Okay, so it's magic in moderation.
Exactly. If they take too much, they risk destroying the plants in a way that kills the plant completely. So if they have, a peace lily that they carry with them at all times, they can draw some power from it without killing it, and it might be able to rally, right, and still survive, but not completely die. So they try and find that balance essentially. But in extreme circumstances, so if they draw power from it. If they draw too much, they can kill it. In extreme circumstances, if they really need to pull power, not only will they kill the plant, they will destroy the earth in such a way that no plant will ever grow again from that spot. So they completely salt the earth if they pull too much essence from it or whatever you want to call it.
Okay. Yeah, like no biological material left whatsoever at that point. Like, or magic and biology are clearly the same thing as far as like what you can grow food in.
Exactly.
So they suck it all out, and it is just unusable. Just wasteland.
Magic is run on nitrogen essentially, and they just suck all the nitrogen out of the soil, and you can't. So Defilers, on the other hand, leech energy from the land kind of willy-nilly. They steal life away with every spell they cast, and they leave only dead ash behind. So they do pretty much every time a Defiler casts a spell, because they don't care about it. They don't believe in global warming, even though they're living on a fucking desert planet. Which, I mean, I feel like applies to some real life people.
They trademark their spells, and if some of their magic like just drifts on the wind into like a preserver's crop, then they get to sue that preserver, right? And that's the main conflict of this world.
Exactly, yeah. They just are speeding up global warming at every instance. In 2021, they're living in the city and buying a three-quarter ton Dodge Ram to drive around, diesel powered, to just because Defilers need people to know that they have big penises, and that's why you buy a Dodge Ram. So that's
why I let it idle, is because like honestly it wastes more fuel when I start it, so I just like let it run all night.
Yeah, I just never turn it off. Easy. Athos, as we now kind of realize, was not always so barren. Magic seems to be the driving force behind the climate change. Like we said, magic furnaces, magic coal plants, where they're stuffing magicians they're into furnaces.
Yeah.
Have
we tried to find an alternative. Other people just don't burn as good.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Well, what do you mean? What do you mean? Use the power of the sun? Well,
it's not enough. I don't want more sun. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, that's it. Solar panels? No. That's just gonna make it hotter, bro. Okay, yeah. Trust me. You want global warming? You install some solar panels, okay? Because the black will attract the sun.
We're just gonna start storing it, and this is gonna make everything hotter, idiot.
Believe in climate change, please.
You can take away anything useful from this podcast.
Yeah,
frankly, I hope you don't. But climate change at the very least.
It's climate change at the very least, and that the Incas used a system of tying knots to record knowledge.
Yeah, and you can decide which one of those two things is more important to you. That's not up to me to decide.
Objectively, it's the knots, but. So a lot of the Dark Sun story is told from a narrator known simply as the Wanderer, who left behind something called simply the Wanderer's Journal, and a lot of lore comes from that journal, essentially.
Nice. That's the name of, I believe, the player character. Because obviously your character name is not canon in Fallout 1. I think canonically the generic term for the player character in Fallout 1, which is heavily based on Mad Max, is also the Wanderer, or the Lone Wanderer, or something like that.
I believe the Wanderer, yeah. I played it for 30 minutes, and I liked it, and then never touched it again. I liked it, got killed by a rad scorpion, and said, well, that was fun, and never reinstalled it. So the Wanderer's Journal begins in a bygone time with the Edenic Blue Age, when Athos was once covered with a vast body of life-giving water under a blue sun.
Well,
Halfling.
Now,
go ahead.
Sorry, not to get all naturey on you again, but depending on the water, the water as seas rise and fall and continents move can also create deserts, because the Sahara Desert, one of our modern IRL deserts, does have whale fossils in it because it did used to be underwater and is now. desert.
I mean, a lot of the Earth where I grew up, the Ottawa Valley used to be under a giant lake, but that was a glacial morass lake, so not quite the same. But again,
I'm more of a glacial more tits guy, but whatever.
Again, Pete, I love the real lore. I love the real history. But you're applying the wrong stencil to this story. Let me tell you, because I already told you. I already put my right hand on the left side of my mouth and said it's magic. And you keep being like, okay, it's magic, but is it this real thing? And I have to tell you, no, it's not.
It's close.
It's pretty close. So Halflings, which are a race in Dungeons and Dragons, ruled Athos during this time. They built up a powerful civilization during the Blue Age when most of the world was covered under water and the sun itself was blue. They were nature masters, life shapers. They were able to produce anything they needed by manipulating the principles of nature itself. So they were very competent spellcasters who could, change the weave of magic to be like, hey, I got some food. Hey, I got some land to stand on. I got whatever I need. This age would come to an end as a result of an accident, a horrible, horrible accident. So the Halflings of the great city of Tyr-Agi. Tyr spelled the same way as the modern city of Tyr, so I presume it's descended from this ancient civilization.
And which is, for me, someone who is illiterate, is it TYR or TIR?
TYR, yeah.
Okay.
Just in case you want to Google it. So this great city of Tyr-Agi is ruled by Halflings. They tried to increase the sea's fecundity, even though they had access to magic, which apparently could give them anything they wanted. They're like, well, we want more fertile seas. Rather than just wishing for a fish, they wished for a sea that produced more fish. So in order to produce more creatures and plants, they're like, hey, we want more biodiversity. You know what? Noble intentions. The experiment failed. And unfortunately, instead of choking the sea with wildlife, they choked the sea with a toxic brown tide that spread across the waters, killing everything it touched.
Oh,
so I guess you could say they were just a little bit off,
Yeah, that's not even like a haha. Forgot to carry the one, guys. That is this had the complete opposite effect.
This was so roaring 80s where they were just like railing cocaine and they had everything they ever wanted. They're like, hey, we're gonna destroy the future for our children. Let's elect Reagan, and just balls to the wall. Ruined.
I think that the Tyr Ocean could be more fertile, and I think the best way to do it is with brown sludge.
Yeah, the oil companies have assured me that they have our best interests in mind when they're dumping their toxic brown sludge into the water.
Men who pay me money have promised me that fish breathe and have sex better in pure crude oil.
Mr. President, the science doesn't seem to suggest that that's true. Why did you say that the dead fish were all caused by young urban drug users?
I'm just saying that crack cocaine is very addictive, and perhaps some of it got into the ocean, and it's unrelated. I keep the White House goldfish here, Goldie as I call her, in a bowl of brown sludge. Of course, you can't see through it, so she can't come say hello right now, but I can assure you she is alive and well, and I've been feeding her every day. All the while, he's, of course, 91 years old and suffering from dementia, so he's facing the wrong direction during the
Exactly. So after the Blue Age, of course, comes the
Brown Age?
Green Age.
Dang.
Don't know why it wasn't the Brown Age, but we went from blue to green, which on a color wheel I think makes sense. So the Wanderer's Journal claims that the Green Age began approximately 14,000 years before the setting's starting period. So when you typically play in the setting. Yeah. Of course, again, for anybody listening who doesn't really know much about D&D, you could always be like, I want to make a D&D campaign in the Blue Age with all these halflings and go on adventures in there. That's, of course, up to you. But there
legal, whatever, do whatever you want. You
exactly.
Weirdo.
There's a canon setting that we're talking about. So quit derailing me, hypothetical person who doesn't understand what Dungeons and Dragons is. But like and subscribe. So desperate to save themselves and Athos from the brown tide, the halflings built something called the Pristine Tower. which was a powerful talisman that could harness the energies of the sun. The light of the Pristine Tower burned away the brown tide, but also would change the planet. So they got like a magic telescope, which worked backwards, I guess, to suck the sun's power down. And they could use that much energy to kind of beat back this brown sludge, which their wish magic didn't seem to be working on.
Okay.
So during this time, the sun changed from blue to yellow. The endless sea receded, revealing a verdant world of plant life. So they managed to get rid of the brown sludge, the brown tide. Goldie the goldfish was okay in the end. Wow, unbelievable. It's amazing what the power of a wish will do.
I run my campaign entirely on the power of wishes.
Hey, if I can work for him, huh? So the endless sea receded, and this verdant world of plant life seemed to be living under the ocean. So when they pushed back the brown, with it went the oceans, and they were like, oh shit, there's livable earth down here.
And all the suffocating mermaids are excellent fertilizer.
Yeah. However, this would mean an end to the Halfling civilization, because other species start to crop up during this time. And for whatever reason, I couldn't, in my quick cursory searches, I couldn't figure out why this happened. Maybe nobody knows, but the Halfling civilization comes to an end with it, and most of them withdraw from the world and spiral into savagery. So in Dark Sun, or in Dungeons and Dragons, let's start with, you know what an elf is. You, the listener, without ever having played D&D before, know what an elf is. You know what a dwarf is. They talk with a Scottish accent. They have a big beard. They live underground. That's the Forgotten Realms settings. They use all those the highest tropes that you can imagine for all their races and everything. Mm-hmm. Dark Sun tries to do a departure from that, where the elves in Dark Sun look like elves, but they're kind of like this nomadic, like herder people, essentially, instead of like, fair people who live in trees. And
are they the guys who ride the moonshine beetles?
They they often would. They're kind of like they're like nomadic tribes. They're the ones who, with the yurt, where you force somebody to eat a baby or sign a timeshare agreement.
Oh, okay, right, yeah.
The yurt door locks behind you. That's those guys, essentially.
They're the Florida Bedouins that I was talking about earlier.
Exactly. And the Halflings are like crazed cannibals. They're just like, where in D&D, the Halflings are hobbits, so they love to drink. They're like super jolly. They're extremely lucky and all these other things. They're very, very happy-go-lucky. In this one, they're like the complete opposite. They're depraved, they're psychotic, they're a cannibalistic race, they, love taking slaves, all this other stuff. And
they hard to deal with, considering they're so tiny?
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, it just seems strange that it's just like, wow, we have this like real cannibal hobbit problem when they're like a couple of feet tall. Like, they're very little people.
Pete, you're making it apparently clear that you've never tried to wrestle with a leprechaun, my friend, because they are uncannily strong. Okay,
can't say I has, unless again, animal fact of the day. To keep these things coming, unless hobbits are like ants and they can just lift a lot more than their body weight.
Yeah, so I'm going to slowly slide my right hand up to my left cheek here, Pete, and
it's magic.
Once more, whisper into the mic that it's magic. This is something that comes up in generic D&D campaigns too, is you can make a halfling barbarian with a 20 strength who's just strong enough to lift a mountain above his head. You know what I mean? Like, don't assume that strong comes from the muscle fibers and the lactic acid buildup in your muscles. It comes from the magic power of wishes. Okay, right. It's enough for a halfling to lift a mountain. It's enough for Reagan to get elected. So, I don't know why we're harping on this Reagan thing so much. We're not a political podcast, but
no, or American, and none of us have ever been to the 80s.
Yeah, fair point. So yeah, halflings are kind of fucked up. They're surprisingly bitey in this time. The sun has gone from blue to yellow. And the former halfling center of Tiragi was renamed Tyr. And the other great cities of the Tyr region, such as Ib, Bodak, Gustanal, were built during this period. That's just a shout out for the people who've actually read the books. Okay. Due to mutations caused by the power of the Pristine Tower, that talisman that they created in an effort to drive back the brown sludge, the new people of Athos discovered they were gifted with myriad psionic powers. So apparently the psionic powers come from this talisman that they created, which drew power from the sun in some way. Again, magic.
Yeah, the sun needed some kind of new vessel to transfer its power, I guess.
I could see your hamster spinning there, Peter, as you were trying to like figure out the real world comparison to how the sun creates radioactive psychic energy.
Sunflowers rotate to face the sun, and I don't know how.
So soon, a high standard of living was achieved for those dwelling in the cities, supported by wonders created with psionics. This is a boom era. This is a good time to be alive.
Yeah, but psionic flappers, the whole deal.
Yeah. After the green era would come
red.
The time of magic.
Well, fuck me, man. That doesn't.
I love setting you up when you never have a chance. So that's the only time I will ever set you up is if you don't have a chance of guessing it.
Okay, I see. Thank you.
So among the new races that were kind of coming out, the elves, humans, subhumans, things like that. There was a powerful race known as the Pyrenees. One of their number, Rajaat, would bring about sweeping changes to Athos. Rajaat discovered magic, 8,000 years before the current age. So the Halflings had magic. They all descended. Oh, excuse me. That water's coming up. The Halflings had magic, but they all descended into madness, went off into the hills to eat each other or some shit. And so the secret, they weren't great teachers. You know what I mean? So
yeah, it's like everybody from the university we try to embed with the halflings keeps getting devoured. So like honestly, we'll just never know.
I sent in my SAT scores to the wizard school, but they just asked me what my body fat ratio is.
They all did it right with string. It's incomprehensible. Yeah. I don't get it.
So this guy Rajaat, who is one of the Pyrenees, discovered magic in his own right 8,000 years before the current age.
Okay.
So seeking more power, Rajaat learns of this artifact known as the Pristine Tower and takes possession of it through whatever means he's got it. He gets his hands on it. Yeah. Once he had the Pristine Tower, he mastered the new force of magic and developed it into the two distinct forms of magic. So the Preserver and the Defiler magic. So magic.
Okay.
Magic at this point is working the way that it works in modern day. This is the magic that Rajaat has discovered and develops. But it's a very verdant time. Everything's green, everything's lush. It's rainforest as far as the eye can see. And you know what? It's the 1930s, and we're saying we could probably cut down rainforest forever and never run out.
Duh.
So they
trees grow back. Yeah. So I mean, if we cut all of them down,
they'll just grow back, right? No problem. Yeah. So he teaches preserving magic to the public. He community college, preserving magic classes. No defiling magic classes.
Okay.
Secretly, he picks 15 human students with potential for both psionics and magic for some darker purposes, and he's going to teach them defiling magic.
You never trust the valedictorians, boys. Don't do it.
Using the power of the Pristine Tower to harness the energy of the yellow sun, he transformed these 15 into his champions. Besides their native psionic powers and defiling magic, they were imbued with immortality and the ability to draw magical energy from living creatures through the use of obsidian orbs. So, magic, I said it comes from living things. Typically, you can only draw magic from plants because the life force isn't potent enough. But if you have these obsidian orbs and you have the know-how and the ability granted to you by Rajaat, you can suck the life force out of people to cast very powerful spells, essentially.
Okay.
The process of creating these champions, giving them immortality and the power to do this through obsidian orbs, would turn the sun from yellow to red.
Okay. So the sun clearly is like the mood ring of the planet. Like as things change, its energy output changes, and then it changes color depending on like how it's feeling and the kind of state that the world is in. So you can tell that things are shitty when it turns deep red and starts to burn away the atmosphere.
Yeah, Pete, can I just say, I'm amazed. I am absolutely...
It's magic.
I am no. I am absolutely floored that you didn't say, hey, really high energy suns are typically like white, blue. They turn to yellow as they start to burn some of that off, and then eventually they'll fade to just like red giants, where they're just like massive.
The one time you have a fact for me.
I'm just amazed that you didn't make that comparison.
Now all of a sudden I'm fucking playing your game, and I'm just like, Magic did it, and it's just when the planet gets cranky, the sun turns red.
Yeah, it seems to be directly tied to kind of. I don't know if it's tied to the mood of the planet as much as it's kind of they're drawing power from the sun to do these massive changes to the planet.
Okay.
And so to me, it did seem like, hey, it's like they're changing the power of the sun somehow. Whether it's a mood ring and it's just pissed off that they keep taking more energy out of it, or if it's just like running low on energy these days, it's impossible to tell. Lore Boys canon, it's a mood ring.
Okay. They've tried to taste the power of the sun with their Sun ED, but now they've gone too far.
Yeah. So Rajaat is at a turning point here. You might ask yourself, Peter, well, why is this guy so interested in building secret champions and controlling all the magic of the world, huh?
That was going to be one of my questions, actually.
So Rajaat had the grandiose dream of returning the world to the glorious splendor of the Blue Age. Okay, admirable enough goal. He's like, you know what? I want oceans back, please.
This is kind of the second road to hell is paved with blank of this entire story.
However, he couldn't reconcile having all these pesky races around for his beautiful Blue Age. So about 3,500 years...
There are a few things that I have heard that have made me more uncomfortable in my life.
So about 3,500 years before the current age, when most of the stories take place, Rajaat assigned each of his champions a race to exterminate.
Oh my god.
So, there was a moment when I was researching this, I was like, oh wait, is he like, an admirable guy that's been misled into, he keeps drawing power trying to fix it, but he's just breaking it worse. But no, he is also just a really bad guy. The ensuing years of struggle were known as the Cleansing Wars, which is, again, a very uncomfortable thing to call a series of wars.
Yeah, it's a bad thing.
So the unbridled use of Defiling Magic unleashed by Rajaat and his champions during the wars desolated the land, turning much of it into a savage desert wasteland under a burning crimson sun.
Okay.
So the non-existence of many typical D&D races, such as trolls and goblins, they don't exist in the Dark Sun setting. They say that it's usually explained as it's because of the Cleansing Wars. So there were goblins, there were trolls, but they were considered, their champion, the champion that led that extermination was successful.
Trolls are weak to fire, so they're probably ill-suited for a desert planet in the first place, though.
True. I don't know how many bridges there would need to be for them to live under, because there's no rivers, right?
Oh, the whole thing, like any economic system, like any kind of political thing, it's all very complex, and it is the lack of rivers that led to a lack of bridges.
Yeah. It's like when they introduced deer into Yellowstone National Park, which changed the shoreline of a certain river because the wolves were hunting deer who were eating all the grass at the edge of the river, which was driving it wider and everything.
Yeah.
That's the Dark Sun setting. This is the horrible world that you can sit around a table with your friends and enjoy some Mountain Dew and hummus while playing some Dungeons and Dragons. Hope you liked it. Once again, shout out to Saucy for the recommendation. Thanks so much for it. If you guys want to recommend more D&D settings specifically, hit me up on the Discord. But anything you guys recommend, I have a going list. I've just been kind of cranking through it as I go. Every time somebody says, hey, can you do one episode on Magic? I will do 7 episodes on Magic. Likewise for Warhammer 40k. So you gotta throw some other ones at me if you want me to talk about them. I've been your host, Ethan Palmer. Like I said at the top of the show, you can go to loreboys.com/about to find all our contact info, link to the Discord, our email, our Twitter, which we do not use anymore. Our Instagram link is there. If you open it on the browser on your phone, it should open the Instagram app. But I as somebody who doesn't know Instagram, I can't guarantee that.
It does. It's a phone setting, but it should, yeah.
Twitch.tv/theloreboys. Jamie does most of the streaming, so I guess we're just going to be seeing the spirit of Jamie in the future now that he's autoerotic asphyxiated himself to death. But You can find him there Tuesdays, Thursdays, oftentimes Fridays. It's a lot of World of Warcraft streams, but they're often really, really fun because it's usually just a couple of us hanging out and memeing while he does really menial things in World of Warcraft. So head over there to check him out. Peter, is there anything that you want to plug, suggest, remind people of?
At Lore Boys Podcast on Instagram. If you're just going to punch it into the app, please do so. Please check out my publisher, Squared Idea, squared-idea.com. I've got some stuff coming out soon, TM. I don't know. I'm not really in control anymore of that whole thing. It's done. Yeah. And I'm working on some other projects as well as like other stuff in the future, which is really cool. So if you guys want any...
The wagon's on a hill and the horses have broken the tether. It's out of control.
That's exactly it. It's like, I'm a professional now, baby. Time to...
Take my hands off.
Everything's out of my control.
Pretty much.
So there's that. And then, again, if you want to suggest anything, I've been keeping a list of recommendations as well. I've mentioned it in the past that 2021 is my year of requests, and I've done almost nothing but up until this point and intend to continue. So I'll add it to the pile and get to it over time. If you want to support the show financially, you can, of course, go to patreon.com/theloreboys. That's where you can go, pay us for things if you'd wish. If you want to pay our bills, that's where you do it. Mm-hmm. You could also sometimes catch up on rejected episode titles, which is a fun little thing that Ethan's been doing. Mm-hmm. And you can check out our merch, like I said, at tpublic.com/theloreboys, or in the Discord, just recommend something you want to see on like a shirt or a sticker or a mask, whatever. But Ethan, thank God, as our founder and CEO, has been really good on Lore Boys Prime the whole time. For the more ANCAP listener, where there's no middleman whatsoever, goes directly to the rest. So Ethan, why don't you get into the Lore Boys Prime this week?
Yeah, I mean, we know that some of you don't trust big Patreon. You guys don't want to go through them, so we offer a straight to vendor, point of purchase, essentially support the show sale. Shout out to our patrons. No fault of yours, but the Lore Boys Primers, right hand to my left cheek, you're the real heroes. Yeah, so this week, I was researching this setting. I thought it was so cool, right up until I got to the point about all the genocide. But I was getting so into it, so involved. I bought a ton of sunflowers to give myself, psionic abilities to connect my brain to the sun, and I bought a whole bunch of sand. And then I kind of got to the end of the story. I was like, this makes me a little uncomfortable. The sand was starting to irk me. It's coarse and it's rough and it just gets everywhere. So
I hate it.
So I want to give it back to you guys. So anybody who signs up for Lore Boys Prime this week will get a bag of sand with anywhere between the stem of a sunflower to the petal of a sunflower, or maybe the seed of a sunflower, maybe an entire sunflower, depending on how many people sign up this week. While supplies last, I guess you could say the sunflowers will go, but I don't think I'll run out of sand anytime soon. It's everywhere. It's just everywhere. So sign up for Lore Boys Prime for the price of $53.72 a week. You can pay it in biweekly installments if you'd prefer, though it does have interest if you do that way. So it's 0% APR if you do it just the full week, biweekly. Anyway, no need to get into it. You can read the fine print. But I'll be sending you some sand. I believe Pete, in solidarity, might send you some kitty litter, fresh kitty litter. Don't be gross. But
unused. Absolutely. I mean, we had talked about it earlier. I don't know if it's going to be successfully implemented. That you can just it's kind of like a send your own bag thing. So it's more of a sand request.
Yeah.
With your payment. So put your money in the bag, send that to us. We'll return the bag with sand in it.
Yeah. No.
And I'll top it off with cat litter.
No mesh bags. I'm not falling for that one again. Okay. It's very funny.
Sand all over my floor.
Yeah, sand all over my beach floor. You son of a beach. Thanks so much for listening, everybody. If you like the show, leave us a review. It means the world to us. And I guess that constitutes a Lore Boys.
A Lore Boys.
Out.